What's up, everyone? Thanks so much for joining my YouTube channel this morning. Today's Hatha Yoga Flow is a beginner's level practice that'll be focused on stretching through the upper back and being present and staying focused. If you are ready to, we're going to start in a comfortable cross-legged seat. Feel free to bring a pillow, any props that you might need. There will be a supported fish pose at the end of this flow. If you need a mantra for today's practice, that mantra might be, I am present, I am now, or be here now. We'll talk more about those when we get started. When you're ready, comfortable cross-legged seat with a pillow or a block under your hips, get comfortable, and I'll meet you there. Coming into a comfortable cross-legged or other seat. Check in with your spinal alignment. We're going to focus on being present in the body today. So you might find a mantra like, I am present, I am now, be here now, or here and now is everything. So as you start to drop in, just start to take inventory of what's going on in your mind and bodies. Checking in with the physical body, the intellectual body, the emotional body, and the spiritual body. Whatever that means to you. So just asking yourself, how do I feel? Maybe taking a scan of the physical body. Noticing the quality of your breath. Noticing if you're distracted or unfocused. Just observing quietly without judgment. So we're going to practice being present throughout the practice today. If your mind starts to wander, just notice that in the beginning. Just take stock of that without judgment or attachment. If you have a really hard time maintaining focus or being present in the body, try coming back to the breath. So just observing those physical sensations, the fullness of your inhales. Listening to the sounds of the breath. Noticing what you feel on your exhales. Remember that this practice is your own. All of my cues are merely suggestions. Feel free to make it your own, to be curious in the body. To use the mantra that works for you today. And to take what you need from this practice. Try to find stillness in the body before we incorporate movement. Maybe find stillness in the mind. Check in once again with your spinal alignment, your posture, quality of your breath. Try to settle into this present moment without anticipating the next. Practice living in the current moment, not thinking about the past, not reliving your dreams, not remembering, not anticipating, not planning, just being here now. Take your time finding stillness in the mind. And if you've already got it, just enjoy. Turn inward for a few quiet moments. Notice if your mind starts to wander. Continue to notice that in these quiet moments throughout the practice today. Come back to your body, noticing the sensations of the body. If you're having trouble settling in or connecting to those sensations, you might take a mudra with the hands or put your hands on your body to connect more deeply with what you're feeling physically. Wherever you are, stay there until you feel settled. And once you're grounded, you might start to incorporate small movements through the head and neck. We're going to start by drawing small circles with the nose in a clockwise position. So you're just moving as slowly as possible in the beginning, because as you move, your body is sending you signals and information. So just take your time understanding that information and moving through that. You might start slowly expanding those circles, receiving different information as you begin to articulate through the cervical spine. And then just checking in, noticing what you feel, addressing what you feel, observing more deeply any sensations that you're curious about. So I know that I'm tight in my traps, so I'm just going to roll my chin in like a crescent moon shape across my chest, tucking the chin toward the chest. And I'm just feeling through all of that tightness, noticing what I feel and where. Let the sensations of your body dictate your movement in the same way. Try to be curious and try to be present. Take your time moving through any easy organic movement that feels good through the head and neck. Maintaining that integrity in your spinal alignment, nice and open through the chest. Able to breathe deeply and freely and exhale completely. You might start to reverse those circles with the nose. Again, take your time here. We're going to do some more stretching through the neck and upper back, so don't worry if you didn't solve anything that came up here. Just try to be present in what you do feel and try to notice what you feel and where. If you're reversing those circles, you might feel some different sensations in this direction, so just notice that. And then feel free just to incorporate any easy organic movement that your body's asking you for. So I'm just going to look left to right, keeping my chin parallel to the ground, checking in with my range of motion there. You might lift the chin, lift the gaze upward, tuck the chin toward the chest, otherwise just checking in. If you have any soreness or pain or tenderness, just be gentle. Don't force anything. Meet your body where it is today without judgment. When you feel good about that, only when you're ready, we'll come back through center, coming back to that comfortable cross-legged or extended leg seat. Nice spinal alignment, rolling the shoulders back. We'll continue stretching through the neck and upper back by dropping that left palm downward toward the outside edge of the left hip, with the fingertips flipped up toward the ceiling or toward your forearm. So I'm just dropping that down to just above the yoga mat on the outside of my left hip. From there, I'm going to drop my right ear over my right shoulder, making this nice long line of energy through the left side of the neck, the sternocleidomastoid, all the way through your forearm, maybe. Just notice what you feel there. So there's a lot of ways to modify this pose, so you can just stay there if it feels good. Maybe just draw small circles with the palm in the air. My right hand is just staying on my right knee, but again, you can put that wherever is comfortable for you. You might also just roll the head and neck forward and backward, noticing the connection there. Just be curious in your body. We can bring the right palm to the outside of the left ear and just rest it gently there to let gravity kind of create more tension through the neck. But don't force that. Be super gentle if you do this. And then just explore. You can draw those circles with your palm, maybe send the palm backward or forward, just noticing what you feel and where. Listen to your body. Take your time there. And when you feel good about it, you can come back up through center. We'll do the same thing on the second side. So we'll start by dropping that right palm to the outside edge of the right hip, flipping those fingers up toward the ceiling or toward the forearm, and then tilting that left ear over the left shoulder. Just checking in, noticing those connections, noticing what you feel and where. Be curious in the body. Don't forget to breathe. If you want to, you can bring that left hand to the outside edge of the right ear, resting that palm on the right side of the face. And just letting gravity add a little more tension there. Very gently though. Take your time stretching through the neck and traps. When you feel ready, you can come back through center, reset that posture, or check in once again. Notice how you feel. And then we're going to do a Garandasana, or eagle arms, and there's a modification of this, so we'll do both. We'll start by opening up the palms really wide, getting long, full extension through the elbows, maybe sending the palms back behind the body toward one another, stretching through the chest. And then we'll slowly, mindfully bring the palms toward one another, very slowly. So you can either, we're going to cross the right arm under the left. You can either bend to 90 degrees at both elbows and take a bind there by wrapping that right hand to the inside of the left palm, which we also call eagle arms, this pose. If this is totally inaccessible for you, you can also just continue moving the palms toward one another, bring the palms to the upper back, and just walk the fingertips toward one another, finding that embrace through the upper back. So whatever works for you in your practice, that's where we are. Start to notice what you feel and where in this pose, and then start to connect that to the breath. So big inhales, feel that nice stretch, and let something go on your exhale. Good. Take your time here, just noticing, getting grounded. When you're ready, we can sync up with the breath, and on your next inhale, raise the elbows up toward the ceiling. And as you exhale, bring the elbows in toward the low ribs, curling down through the back, relaxing through the head and neck. Letting the shoulders relax down toward the earth, noticing what you feel and where. Putting your mind's eye where you feel sensations in the body. Observing that without attachment, without judgment. Letting your body know it's okay to relax. Your mind starts to wander, just notice that. Try to come back to the breath and turn inward. When you feel ready, we're going to transition out of this pose by syncing up with the breath once again. On an inhale, you can start to raise the elbows back up toward the ceiling, slowly curling back up through the spine. We'll unravel the arms and bring them away from each other, back behind us once again. We're just out to the left and to the right, noticing what's different, if anything. And what we do to one side, we'll do to the next. Bringing the palms slowly toward one another, bringing the left arm under the right eventually, and then either bending at the elbows and finding that bind on the second side, or continuing the palms to the upper back, finding that self-embrace, walking the fingertips toward one another, connecting with the breath, noticing what you feel and where. Very normal for the sensations on this side to be different from the other side. If it is or if it isn't, just observe. Notice how incorporating the breath changes the sensations of the body. And when you're ready to sync up with the breath, on an inhale, raise the elbows up toward the ceiling. And exhale, start to curl inward, slowly bringing the elbows in toward the low ribs. Curling down, down, down. Relaxing through the head, the neck, the shoulders. Noticing what you feel. Quieting the mind to be here now. Spend as much time here as you'd like, and when you're ready, we'll root down through the sits bones, planting the sits bones and the tailbone, curling up through the lumbar spine, then the thoracic, coming all the way back to that nice long spine, unraveling the arms slowly and with intention, being present in the sensations of the transitions of the journey. Bringing the palms together behind the back once again, or maybe just toward one another. Noticing what you feel. And then we'll bring the palms back toward one another, maybe rest them gently on the knees. Check in with the posture, notice if something feels different. Check in with the breath. Try to stay present as we come forward onto all fours. And center ourselves on the mat as we do. Yes, we're going to do a little cat-cow, but first let's go into a little puppy pose. Knees under the hips, walk the palms forward and away from the body. Rotate the palms slightly away from one another and just bring the chest, the forehead down to the mat. Checking in, reminding the body it's okay to relax. Noticing what you feel and where. And then if you want to target the upper back with intention, just bring your mind's eye there. Check out what you're feeling. Maybe engage the abdominals, pressing down through the armpits toward the floor for a slightly different sensation. Or maybe you just stay nice and passive, relax through the belly. Listen to your body and what it needs. If you start to feel distracted in this pose, just notice that. Bring your awareness back to the breath. Bring your mind's eye to the sensations of the body. Observe and let your thoughts pass like snowflakes on a river. Stay connected to the breath. Maybe open your eyes, bring your awareness back to the body. I'm going to transition out of this pose by bringing my palms under the shoulders first to press up into all fours. We will continue stretching through the upper back by threading the needle, but first we're going to just do a little cat-cow. So you know what to do here. Take any variation that feels right to you. To begin with, we'll plant the palms under the shoulders. The knees are still under the hip bones. On your inhale, you might drop the belly, lift the gaze, pull the shoulders back. And on your exhale, press through the palms, arching through the upper back. Low ribs come inward. Sync up with your breath. Move organically. Keeping the palms and the knees planted, you might be curious about other articulations of the spine, maybe bending into the elbows, drawing circles with the ribs. Whatever feels good in your body or whatever your body's asking you for. Spend as much time in that movement. When you're ready, we'll start by bringing the left palm to the center of the mat under your chest. Sink your weight into that and drag the right fingertips along the left arm and across the chest and up toward the ceiling. Checking in, noticing what you feel and where. Noticing your range of motion here. We'll use those right fingertips to guide us under the left armpit, under the left arm, down onto the right ear, the right shoulder. And then from there, you can slide your left hand upward toward that corner of the mat. Or you can keep your palm planted under the shoulder, near your face, whatever feels right. And again, you can make this pose very passive, just relaxing into the sensations that you feel. Or you might incorporate micro movements like pulling that right shoulder into the socket or walking the left fingertips a little further away from the body to create different types of sensation and stretching in the body. So listen to your body, let that inform where you are with this pose. Definitely stay connected to the breath. Observe what you feel and where. Notice if your mind starts to wander or if you're distracted by something. Observing our thoughts and letting them pass like clouds in the sky without attachment. Just noticing. Take your time in this pose, but when you're ready to transition out, you can start by bending into that left elbow to bring the left palm under the left shoulder if it's not there already. Press into that palm, extend through the elbow, lift that right hand back up toward the ceiling. Moving with intention, noticing the sensations of that journey. Noticing your range of motion at the top. And then eventually bringing that right hand back down toward the mat. So you can shift that right palm toward the middle of the mat. Again, sink your weight into that. Once that's planted, we'll drag the left fingertips along the right arm, across the chest, and upward toward the ceiling. Checking in with your range of motion on that second side. Again, just noticing. Also noticing what you feel. Leading with the left fingertips. Let's bring that left hand underneath the right arm, coming down onto the left shoulder, left ear. Right palm can go under the right shoulder, or you can extend that toward that top corner of the mat. And make this second side as active or as passive as you want. Try to turn inward here. Be present. I'm going to be quiet so you can enjoy the fullness of your breath. If you start to get distracted, just notice. Come back to the fullness of your inhale. And let something go on your exhale. Take your time coming out of this pose when you're ready. We'll bend into that right elbow to bring the right palm under the right shoulder. Pressing into that palm to extend through that right elbow. Bringing the left hand back up toward the ceiling. Noticing what you feel, noticing what's different, if anything. And floating that left hand back down to the floor. From this all fours position, we'll curl the toes under, extend through the knees, sending the hips up toward the ceiling or the sky, coming into your first downward dog. We're just going to take a pause here. If you're tight through the hamstrings, notice that. We're looking for that flat back position, so your heels don't have to touch the floor. You can bend into your knees. Checking in with the hamstrings are going to dictate what that looks like there. So it's more important that you have this flat back position than heels on the floor. Just notice what you feel in the posterior chain, particularly through the calves, the ankles, the hamstrings, the knees. Maybe pressing through one foot then the other, maybe finding stillness. Remember, it's your practice, make it your own. And from here we'll vinyasa. So let's walk the hands out, walk into a plank, hold that plank for just a second, and then we'll slowly lower to the belly, as slowly as you can. Coming all the way down. Extending through the feet, tops of the feet, press into the mat, and we're going to press up for cobra. So just extending through the elbows here, checking in with the low back especially, noticing what you feel and where. We're just going to play around in cobra for a minute, so just checking in with the sensations of the back and modifying your practice accordingly. And also sway from the left to the right, bend into the elbows. Just take this time to be curious in cobra. Notice what you feel and where. And when you feel satisfied with that, you've had enough of that, we'll come into Sphinx. So just bringing the forearms to the mat, palms face downward, fingers radiate away from the body like rays of the sun. Lift the chin to parallel to the floor. Maybe soften the gaze or close your eyes if it feels good. And then we'll just gently pull the elbows in toward the hip bones. Notice what happens in the back. You might feel a lot of compression in the low back with this pose. If so, you can come back into cobra and just play around there a little bit more. Just checking in with that low back compression. Otherwise, we'll take a moment here, reconnect with the breath. Notice if you're distracted, what's distracting you? All right, we're going to continue incorporating movement when you're ready by bending further into the elbows, lowering all the way down to the chest. We're going to send the arms back behind us, so fully extending at the elbows, palms toward the ceiling. My fingertips are pointed in the same direction my toes are pointed, so long, long line here. We're going to create some inter-abdominal pressure by taking a nice big inhale, activating your abdominal wall. Then we're going to arch through the upper back to lift the legs and the palms away from the floor for locust pose. Just creating that tension again through the posterior chain, noticing what you feel in the back. Engaging a lot of muscles you might not otherwise engage. Shift your gaze down toward the mat. Try to stay lifted, stay centered, stay present in the body. And relax everything back down to the mat. You can bend into the knees. Bring one hand to the outside edge of each foot, so corresponding hand grabbing corresponding foot. And we're going to do something similar to what we just did by creating that intra-abdominal pressure. So taking a big inhale, and then we're going to lift the feet away from the body toward the ceiling and oppose the hands and feet. Feel free to play around in this pose. Notice what you feel and where. Try to stay present in those sensations without getting overwhelmed. Try to keep the knees pulling toward one another and not splaying outward. And when you feel good about it, relax everything back down to the mat. You can let go of your feet. And we'll press up to all fours. Take your time getting there. Move with intention. From all fours, we're going to come into extended child's pose or child's pose. Let your body decide. If you want to stretch through the hips, you might bring the big toes into touch, knees wide. Send the hips back toward the heels. If you want to stretch more through the upper back and through the back in general, the traditional version is probably better for you. Either way, we'll melt it down to the mat. Settle into your version of child's pose. Notice what you feel and where. Start to turn inward. Maybe remember your mantra. Be here now. I am present. Reconnect with the breath. Let go of what's not serving you. If you're distracted, quiet the mind. Come back to the present moment. Just let your cork float. Just existing, not worrying about the future, not reminiscing about the past, not rooted in ego. As you bring your awareness back to the body, you might press into the fingertips Or roll the forehead gently left to right. You might gently open your eyes if they're closed. And slowly start to rise up. If you're in extended child's pose, you can walk the fingertips toward the body. If you are in traditional child's pose, just moving slowly back up to that upright position. And we're going to come into a seated forward fold from here. So if you're one of those tight hamstrings people, we might keep the knees really bent and off the floor. And when we fold in our seated forward fold, you'll just wrap the arms around the knees, relax the head, the neck, the shoulders in that way. If you're not a tight hamstrings person, we'll extend fully through the knees, sending the legs out in front. Set up that nice long posture, long line through the spine, tuck the chin, bring the arms up and overhead. Really reaching, getting long. We'll hinge at the hips and imagine sending the hands beyond the feet. But wherever they land, they land. You can gently hold the outside edges of your feet or your ankles, or you can open up the palms toward the ceiling and just rest the forearms on the mat. If none of those are accessible to you, then do the bent knee version of this pose. Wherever you are, you can relax through the head, the neck, and the shoulders. Notice what you feel, reconnect with the breath. Try to incorporate the breath into the sensations that you're observing. So just take some nice deep breaths and notice how that might change the body's sensations in this pose. Take your time in whatever version of this pose you're in. When we transition out of it, we're going to come down to our backs. We're going to set up for a modified fish pose. So to do that, I'm going to start from this seated position, and I'm going to use 2 yoga blocks, one under my head and one along the spine between my shoulder blades. If you don't have these blocks, that's okay. You can do this with a pillow, or you can do it with no props at all, and I'll show how to do that in just a moment. So from here, I'm going to bring this middle block, which is perpendicular to the other one, kind of directly in line with my spine. I'm going to bring it toward my hips and to the lumbar spine, and just articulate down the spine to come into this kind of supported back bend. From here, I'll grab the other block just to put it under my head in any way that feels supported, that feels stable. And then I'll open up the palms next to the body and just allow the shoulders to melt down toward the earth, toward the mat. So if you're here, just stay there, relax into it, start to turn inward. If you don't have any blocks or props, you can do this just by beginning on the back, coming up onto the forearms, and just holding this pose. You can lift the chin up toward the ceiling, and just settle your weight into the elbows, into the heels, into the legs, into the hips. So take your time in whatever version you're in. If no version of this pose is accessible to you, feel free to move into any meditative pose that you want to close your practice with. We're going to be here for a moment. We're going to finish the practice in this pose with a little meditation. So if you're not feeling it, maybe just move straight to Shavasana or another meditative posture that feels right in your body today. Wherever you are, come back to the breath, come back to your mantra. Remembering to be present, letting go of the past, not ruminating on anything we can't control. Coming back to the bodies, not stressing about the future, not planning your day, not thinking about what you're going to eat after this. Just being in your body. Listening to the breath. Reminding your body it's okay to relax. Not rushing through this space that you've created for your physical and spiritual bodies. Just being present in that. In yoga, we believe that disease manifests as dis-ease in the body, in the mind. So managing your emotional body, your intellectual body, and your spiritual body are just as important as maintaining the physical body. And just as important in determining where and how your body stores stress and tension. All that to say, be intentional about rest and rejuvenation in your practice, both for the body and the mind. If you want to close this practice in Shavasana and you're currently in some form of fish pose or modified fish pose, feel free to make that transition now. Move slowly and with intention. Settle in, let the body and the mind find stillness. Stay connected to the sounds and sensation of the breath. Before I close this practice, I want to recognize that I am leading this practice from unceded Monongahela and Osage territories in what is now known as Pittsburgh. I encourage you to find out whose lands you are practicing on and how you can support their ongoing struggles for liberation. I'm going to bring my palms together, prayer hands to rest gently at the third eye or forehead or space between the eyes. Feel free to join me in that if it feels right, and only if it feels right for you. We also want to recognize that yoga is an ancient spiritual practice stemming from the subcontinent of India and Indian culture. So we recognize and honor that heritage without appropriation. We also recognize that yoga functions in many ways for many peoples of the world, including as a community. I thank you so much for being part of my community today. I hope you got something you needed here today, and I hope to see you again soon. Namaste.